So the start of my third year, I had the proposal project. So I came to Blum with a one-page proposal, and we discussed the goals for the project. And man, let me tell you, I think my memory regarding when people screw up a little too consistently is just a little too good because every time Blum does something a little bit off, a red flag gets raised in my mind. You know, one thing was, let's see, what was the first thing? Okay, so here's the thing. Here's a very, very brief introduction to my proposal. I would like to use organosilane as nucleophiles towards electrophiles that have to be activated, right? And one like constraint for this project was that I couldn't use the nucleophilic pi system because those have already been reported on heavily in the literature. So we're going through the discussion, and we're bouncing ideas off each other's. Uh, and she proposes that I use TMS allo, a nucleophilic pi system. So, not entirely sure what's going on here at that point. Not entirely sure if she's screwing with me or if she doesn't know that TMS allo acts as a nucleophilic pi system or if this is just a mental flub. You know? Just, I'm not sure. And she seemed to contradict herself one good time. Like, well, at least I interpret it as a contradiction. I'm not entirely sure if I interpreted her words correctly, but this is what she said. She said that I have to become an expert in 1-3 transposition chemistry by reading through the literature, which I agreed with. But later on during the discussion, when we were talking about determining what conditions I should and should not test, she told me I just needed to try things, which I don't necessarily agree with. And this is because when I was an undergraduate, I was taught that in order to find out what conditions to test, you have to read through the literature, find out what worked, find out what didn't work, and then based on the information that you find, test a series of conditions that you think will work, you know? And yeah, that kind of just seems as a contradiction to me, you know? You have to, one, become an expert on this subset of chemistry by reading through papers. And when it comes to actually doing the experimental stuff, don't read through papers to find out what conditions might work best. Just try stuff. That just did not sit right with me, you know? And another weird thing is that, remember, I came to her with a one-page proposal. And what she did was she emailed me the one-page proposal. The proposal that I have a physical copy of, a digital copy of, which I thought was kind of weird, you know? So, I'm not entirely sure what's going on here. Because does she really believe that I'm going to lose the digital, the physical copies of my proposal and completely forget the goals of my project? Again, that just sits. It just doesn't sit right with me, you know. Especially since when I first got here, I had trouble with people gaining access to my personal information. So again, I'm not entirely sure if she's trying to pull something or what. I just don't know, right? And I think maybe a month later I had to do a 10-minute chalk talk, and after the 10-minute chalk talk there was a Q&A session, and there were two situations that kind of again didn't sit right with me. So the first one was that a question that Professor Blum asked. So one of the products that I could form has an acidic proton. And during the course of my reaction, I form an orate intermediate, which can be basic. I mean, organometallic species are known to proto-demethylate, right? So it's not completely unreasonable that she could expect protodeaeration to occur, you know? But the thing is, I don't have like an extensive knowledge of the basicity of orates. And the closest thing that I could remember at that point in time was the kinetic basicity paper that the Bloom group published. I think maybe 2 years before I joined the group, right? So based off the information in that paper, I couldn't give a definitive answer because, yeah, I know that the proton source that is in my system is less basic than the ones that I used in the paper, but I don't know, less acidic than the one that are used in the paper. Yeah, that sounds right. But I don't know how much more basic the orate is relative to the organogold. All I know is that it's more basic. So I don't really know if this protodeaeration is really going to be an issue. So what I told her was I would just have to run the experiment to find out for sure. I'm like, okay. And, she just kind of fell back. And then, I think the very last question, or one of the last questions that I got asked was from Dr. Alamin Mohammed, who asked me what I was doing. And the reason why that was a weird question was because that was the first thing I covered, what I was doing, doing 1,3 transposition chemistry to form these carbocycles with a silicon-based appendage. I think those were pretty close to my exact words. So I pointed to the little figure that I had drawn on the board, and he didn't really seem responsive to that. Like, his eyebrows turned down and he started shaking his head. And after the chalk talk, I had to meet with Blum in her office to discuss how the talk went or whatever. And one thing that she said to me was that I was dismissive, because the basicity question, acid-base question that I was asked before, and I still didn't have an answer for it. One, I wasn't dismissive. I just forgot. I'm sorry I didn't look up, I'm sorry I didn't do an extensive literature search on the basicity of orates. My bad. That wasn't a sign of disrespect. So if Suzanne Blum or Kim Tu, who was the person who asked the questions originally, wants to get upset by that, get over it. Yeah, I know my memory's pretty good. But, sometimes things just slip through the cracks. Don't take it personally. And the other thing was, she said I was dismissive of Alamin Muhammad's comment. Apparently, I needed to read between the lines. Her words, not mine. Because apparently he meant, why are you doing it? Not, what are you doing? Which is what he asked. Now, I honestly think that is just completely unreasonable. If you ask me, what am I doing? That's not the same thing as asking me, why am I doing it? I will never interpret what are you doing as why am I doing it? Ever. So you can say that to me all you want. I will never interpret it the way you want me to. If that's the way you're gonna speak. So yeah. Some time passes. And we have more group meetings. And during one group meeting, Alami Muhammad said that we have to make sure that we as a group make sure to sign in the glove box log. A couple of days later, I think on a Wednesday, I was using the glove box and I forgot to sign in. Blum noticed and told me that I needed to schedule a meeting with her to discuss this, which I felt was completely unnecessary because you could have just reminded me of that. Like that really wasn't worth a whole meeting where you had to schedule like 15 minutes out of your day to just tell me that one thing, even though that wasn't the only thing that she told me. But anyway, 2 days later, that Friday, I had the meeting with Blum, and it's the weirdest thing. She brought up the fact I was dismissive of other people's comments again. Why? I'm not entirely sure, but sometimes she seems to just want to find things that are wrong with me. It just seems a little odd, her behavior. And another thing was after the meeting, we walked down to the laboratory area and we started hovering around the glove box. And while walking past the glove box I didn't use the newer glove box, she told me, "Did you hear? The new glove box is getting a new hand pump vacuum." And the weird thing about that statement, or should I say question, is that I proposed the idea to her the day before, Thursday. So again, I'm not entirely sure what she's trying to pull here. But one thing I know for sure is that I don't think I want her to have influence over what I do for the rest of my life. And I think that based on my experiences with these people in the chemical sciences, that I'm I'm just not meant to be a chemist. I just don't have an interest in doing this for the rest of my life.